My first sense that the United States might be heading towards a civil war came around 2015, reading a feature article on Antifa activists forming armed clubs to protect trans events from conservatives. I'm going to assume Alex Garland read similar articles. The origin story of Kirsten Dunst's character in Civil War is capturing the iconic photo of the Antifa massacre. It's significant that we can't know if Antifa were massacred or massacrer. When I shared my concerns that more guns were a bad idea, I got two kinds of responses from my, at the time, overwhelmingly left-wing progressive Twitter followers. That Antifa were the good guys, so it's okay. And secondly, don't worry, they're LARPing. Alex Garland's Civil War is less a movie about war than a movie about how we see war, specifically the way we see wars through a lens. Showing us a president rehearsing, with some uncertainty, his lines for a speech, then showing us that speech on the television set, then showing us Kirsten Dunst watching that television set through her camera lens, isn't the most subtle way of telling us this is a story about performativity and spectatorship. But Civil War isn't a subtle movie. Civil War is an angry movie. A movie that decides to show you either documentary video or video expensively reconstructed to look like documentary video of a man being necklaced with a petrol-soaked tyre, an inexcusably brutal cucumber, because it wants to make you see the reality of war, is not a subtle movie. It's a very, very angry movie. The question Civil War establishes and leaves dangling in the mind of the audience is, who exactly is Alex Garland angry with? And whose side is Civil War on? Among the most common pre-critiques of Civil War by people who had not and likely never will see the movie is Texas and California would never be allies, because we all know what the sides would be in the next American Civil War, right? But Civil War doesn't want us to know which side is which or who started it. That's why there is no causal chain of events presented about how such a war might have started. That's why the president is a bland, generic Crawford suit who could be the president of any party. Many of the negative responses to Civil War boil down to Alex Garland's refusal to tell us which side he's on. People went into Civil War expecting the thrill of confirmation bias, of being told that your side, in the ever more polarized politics of the United States, is the right side. Instead, Alex Garland throws in references to right-wing militias and Portland Maoists that suggests he's not happy with either side. Texas allying with California is a useful way of indicating that this civil war is not between the sides we might expect. But it's also a massive compliment to California and Texas. When the chips are down and tyranny is arising, America's two most powerful states will fight for liberty. Let's hope that's so. Because Alex Garland isn't angry with Texans or Californians. He isn't angry with liberals or with conservatives. Alex Garland isn't angry with Americans. Alex Garland isn't even angry with war. Alex Garland is angry with all the people, left or right, Texan or Californian, American or otherwise, all the people performatively LARPing our way towards a senseless conflict because the LARP happens to be quite entertaining.
I'm in some respects picking a fight. And when you pick a fight, then you can expect the people you're picking a fight with to aggress back at you. I honestly don't really care. Part of the aggression is, yeah, bring it on.
Civil War is a movie about war reporters because it's a movie about war reported as entertainment. The reporters we follow through Civil War are at different levels of the same craft. The innocent infatuated with the romance of conflict, the veteran with an edge of performative cynicism, the addicted thrill seeker, the old-timer soaking up being the voice of wisdom. These aren't empathetic characters because they are very real characters. Humans who choose to report on wars are in a very complex dance of ego, romance, and fantasy, and that dance only gets more complicated as their experience grows. The war reporter's task is complex. The perfect war photograph is both real and theatrical, explicitly violent, but also so well composed and framed that the violence can be sublimated into art. The war reporter is honestly reporting war, but in just the right way that their report can be made part of the audience's entertainment experience. Most people's primary experience of war today is the movies. War as a backdrop for heroic deeds, or war as emotional epiphany, the hook that even classic anti-war movies like Full Metal Jacket just can't quite let go of. So Civil War makes as few compromises as it can manage to the demands of entertainment. Without warning or context, Civil War shows us the true violence of war, necklacings, cucumber that are artfully left out of our entertainment feed. Civil War refuses to give war any meaningful narrative arc. It's just a series of arbitrary encounters and outcomes, like reality. It's notable that YouTube's leading fake movie reviewer, The Critical Drinker, whose vacuous reviews are just a vehicle for culture war clickbait, mistook Civil War's deliberate anti-narrative for a movie that was incoherent and meaningless. The Drinker is speaking for audiences so lost in mediated representations of war, so used to war being just another hero's journey, that the representation of reality now strikes them as incoherent. People so intent on LARPing a culture war that even their movie reviews have to be part of that game. These are the people Alex Garland is angry with. Alex Garland is one of the great science fiction storytellers of our time. And yes, Civil War is science fiction for anyone in any doubt. If science fiction asks what if questions, then Civil War asks what if you flood society with the hyper-addictive mediated spectacle of war via pocket supercomputers? Civil War is the answer. Your citizenry start LARPing armed conflicts that sooner or later turn real. Garland's early short stories and novels, and his filmography from 28 Days Later and Sunshine to Ex Machina and Annihilation, are some of the greatest science fiction storytelling of our time. That isn't because Alex Garland is a sci-fi fan in particular, it's because our world is being turned upside down by science and technology, and only science fiction provides the tools to tell stories about where we all are right now. Civil War is Alex Garland's masterpiece in that it gathers together parts of all his previous creations, the ragtag characters travelling across in a strange landscape, the random acts of violence, and the toolkit of science fiction storytelling, and makes of them a masterpiece. The catalyst moment in Civil War comes when we meet the nameless president bringing tyranny to the land. Nick Offerman is a genius, and his performance is at that level. It's also perplexing to people who haven't followed Civil War's themes of spectatorship and performativity to this point, because Offerman's president isn't a hard-nosed strongman dictator. Saddam Hussein, a truly murderous dictator, was still swearing and shouting orders up to the moment they killed him. President Offerman is not a dictator, but a political actor LARPing a dictator, an ambitious politician who has climbed to power by joining in the national LARP, and is shocked that it all turned so real. Only the United States could LARP a performative president all the way to totalitarian tyrant, because only the United States has professional wrestling. Kayfabe is the name used in professional wrestling for the complex layers of knowledge required to enjoy this fake sport. Audiences know that The Undertaker isn't a supernatural serial killer, but hoot and hiss, just like he is. And if the audience engage in the kayfabe enthusiastically enough, their fan favourite might eventually get chosen by the promoters to win the title. The national political LARP of the United States has its own kayfabe. Trump is a former WWE showman. He knows the game. He LARPs as a strongman authoritarian leader. His supporters lap it up, and his haters boo and hiss. And then the LARP and kayfabe turn real on January 6th. Many of those now imprisoned and their supporters, like the delusional cucumber shaman, still believe they were players in the insurrection LARP. But the heavily armed far-right militiamen among the LARPers were all too real. This is what civil war warns against, not the horrors of war, which are quite clear, and not even the threat of tyranny, but that both war and tyranny will explode from treating democracy as a spectator entertainment, that the participants will lose track of the kayfabe, and the culture war LARP will turn into a violently real civil war.